I will call the March 8th, 2022 Special Board of Education meeting to order. Roll call.
Kate Thomas,
Here.
Gabe Doney,
Here.
Jim is absent with notice. Amy was not able to join us evidently. Clay Clome,
Here.
Deb Baker, Clay, you can hear us, or excuse me, Gabe, you can hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Troy is absent with notice.
All right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I need a first and a second for the approval of the agenda with the note that we will not be having executive session.
Motion.
Okay, Gabe and Clay.
Kate,
Yes.
Gabe? Motion, yes, no?
Yeah.
Clay
Yes.
and Deb.
Do we need to have her?
Yes, we do.
Oh, she's unmuted.
Huh?
Deb, can you hear us? Should I just call her?
Yeah. Why don't we call her? Put her on speaker that way.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can't change her off.
Hello.
Oh, there you are.
Hi, Deb.
Yeah, I can't hear you guys on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Deb, we need a motion, or we've got a motion. Are you yes
Kate,
or
can
no
you
on
hear
that?
me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear
I
me?
can't hear you guys though.
Okay, but can you hear me on my phone?
Yeah, I can hear you on your phone.
For some reason, it's coming through really loud and clear. So there is a motion and a second to approve of the agenda with executive session being taken out. So if you just.
I
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right.
I'm
we
not
are-
sure I can't hear.
So I'll mute you and tell me or give me a text.
Oh,
when you-
I can mute and well, yeah, I don't know when you need me because I can't hear you guys at all.
Okay, go ahead and mute. She might, if you have a. Maybe try restarting your Zoom and come back in. Try it again. Okay, thanks. Bye. Yes, items for discussion. Go ahead, Val. Yeah.
Okay, so we're doing 2 sets of data tonight. We'll start with Acadians with our winter update. When we're looking at the data, just for the record, number of students assessed in math is only 2,792 because we're only doing it in grades K2. And again, math is new for us this year. We have 5,607 K6 students that took it in the fall. And we added another 60 or so students for the winter. Oh, sorry. I thought I was. I had it up and Shirley made me take it down. So I blame her. Thank you for saying that, Clay. There we go. All right. Just a reminder with this slide, actually, I know the data is pretty small. I believe you've been sent a PDF of this, but it's really interesting to look at where benchmark starts. For example, let's look at kindergarten. They start the year, that blue line is benchmark. They're supposed to score around a 30. But then when you get to just the winter window, they're already expected to score 110. It's just amazing, the leaps and bounds that you move forward as this assessment adjusts throughout the year. So I always think that slide's pretty interesting. You had asked to have this broken out in different ways. And so Vicky, our new data analyst, did a really good job helping me with that. These are our math outcomes. And I need to slide this over so I can see the legend. So beginning to mid-year, our grades K through 2 took the math. 40% of our students were at or above expectations in the fall. Now 44% are. You can see that the students that were well below by the yellow line have decreased by 4%. And those students that are below expectations are still 23% of our students. Different way of looking at it, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2. We want to see that green line stay the same or increase, of course, and the yellow and the orange decrease. This is by ethnicity, and this is something that Acadians doesn't actually offer us. But we take these scores, we put them into our student management system Skyward, and then Vicky can pull them back out. So that's how we were able to arrive at this. So you can see our students from white to Native to Hispanic to Black. How many were at or above expectations at the fall and at the winter by percentage. These are the students that were below at the beginning and mid-year assessment windows. These are our students that are well below.
And if I may just jump in, I think it's important for the board and anyone watching to understand is we want to see green go up. We definitely want to see the well below go down. But as students grow in proficiency, so maybe they start below, but they move into proficiency. And at the same time as we have students move from well below to below, that below can be, depending on the progress that we're seeing with the proficiency rating, that number might not change. It might actually go up. It could even go down.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the situation, if you're following the students to see what happened, it's a positive thing.
Thank you for pointing that out. This is broken out by our special education students versus our non-special education students. And this is Title I schools combined, which there's 8 elementary or 8 total Title I schools, I believe. And then the non-title schools. Those are pretty self-explanatory, but it is nice to see it broken out by subgroup. This is the one that not everybody loves, but I'm just going to point it out again. This is effectiveness of instruction. And this is what Dr. Simon was talking about. You have 3 categories. Those students that likely will be successful with just core instruction, they represent the green. The students that are in the yellow represent students that need some intervention, strategic support. And those students who reside in the red are likely to need pretty intensive support to make adequate achievement marks. So you can see we started the year, our kindergartners, with 44% of them being where you would expect a kindergartner to be. By the middle of the year, if you look to the far right box, you can see by the middle of the year, 53% of our kindergartners had made the move into the green or likely to succeed with core instruction. So that's the kind of thing we want to see. You definitely don't want to lose students from the green. It's always a goal to keep 85 to 90% of students that reside there, keep them there. But when you can increase it, that's great. Now this is reading. So we test reading in grades K through 5. And again, same color scheme. Those students that started the year likely to be successful with core instruction, that was 46% of our students, and now it's 49%. And as Dr. Simon mentioned, it's possible that those needing strategic support could move up into the mid-level. In this case, they didn't. It's still 16% of our students that are likely to need the most intensive intervention.
Quick question, or maybe it's just a comment. It's just find it interesting that on the last slide like this, the top two went up by 4%, went down percent, and the bottom stayed at exactly where it is.
Mhm.
So
I'd love to hear your data analysis thoughts on that, but that's maybe
well, I
later.
do want to point something out here though. So the green is the proficiency rate. So we had a 3% growth in those students that are at or above. Now, it could be that you look at that orange line that's below. Some of those students likely moved into that proficiency, and some of the below where you see that went down probably moved up to below. So it's not looking at that orange line of below that's the same group of students didn't make any growth. It's just at the end of the day when those kids' proficiency scores got shuffled, that's where the data ended up being.
And again, this is all students K through 5. In the upcoming slides, we'll see how our special education population did compared to their general education peers. But interestingly, 16% is about roughly the number of students that are in special services in Rapid City schools. So here is our breakdown by ethnicity. And in this case, the colors really represent a different set of information. Our Caucasian students are represented by blue. Our Native American students are represented by sort of orange. So you can see how our students are faring by ethnicity. I'm sorry, I should have also said this is the students that are at or above proficiency. These are the students that are below proficiency. And these are the students that are well below proficiency. This is our special education versus our non-special education.
Maybe go back. Gabe, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Can you go back one slide? Below proficiency one?
I'm sorry.
The
Is
proficiency.
that the below proficiency one?
Yes.
Whichever one. Oh, okay. So we're looking at actually that are below proficiency. So what's the plan to get them to being proficient? Are Question, I need to know and find out if it's true, but have we taken out phonics and are we taking out TLC reading going forward for like next year?
Taken out phonics? No, we do teach phonics. I don't know how many chances you've had to be in our elementary schools during the reading instruction block, but it certainly includes large group and small group instruction, so you can get targeted instruction to those students and differentiate based on their needs. But all of our elementary schools, and this is just elementary data that we're looking at, run what they call WIN groups, or it stands for what I need. And as you can see, there's the category of strategic and intensive for intervention. We use those categories in our WIN groups and in our RTI process as well. So students have 2 opportunities throughout the day to work at their instructional level and try to make those gains that they need to, edge closer to proficiency. So the short answer is through our regular reading instruction, through our RTI process, and then of course, if it comes to that, through pre-referral to special education.
Can't quite hear you, Gabe.
So that's the plan is the regular schooling and then RTI, and if they're below that, they go to special needs. Is that what I'm hearing?
I guess what I'm saying is during our reading block, which is anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes, depending on the grade in the school and how well they're covered for literacy staff. Every student is getting the foundational, the big 5 in their reading. They are also getting small group instruction during that reading block that's targeted at their skill level and their specific gaps. And then in addition to that, they receive another 30 minutes of instruction by need. So if they happen to be a student that is still working on phonemes, that might be what their WIN group is doing. If they're a student that really is just working on vocabulary, then that might be the WIN group that they're attending that day. So that's how we're addressing students' needs. It is the case that some students, even with that 90 minutes and additional 30 minutes, don't make the progress that we would expect. And in some cases, then yes, they do proceed through the RTI process and they are evaluated for special education.
Dr. Seals, I'm probably going to come meet with you at some point here because I've got a little more in-depth questions that I'm probably not going to ask here.
That's fine. That would be great. Did I already do this? I'm sorry, I got lost. I did math. Okay, so this is effectiveness of instruction for reading. Again, I'll just point out kindergarten, you have copies of all the grades. We started with 41% of our kindergartners likely to succeed with just that core instruction. Strategic and intensive support was 17 and 43% respectively. But it is nice to see that at mid-year, we did boost that core group up to 49%. And we hope to see that same progress when we come around in the spring and provide the assessment again. This is one that I've not shown you before. This is a pathways of progress, and our teachers use this in their PLCs and in their data cycles just to plan instruction for their students. It's kind of easy to read in this format. What it's showing you is wherever I put our pictures, they're always in the way here. It shows you below typical growth in the reds and the yellows, typical, above typical, and well above typical, and I see my typo there, in the green and the blue. So just snapshot, our kindergartners, 58% of them are making typical to above average growth. Again, this is first grade math, 61.48 are proceeding as expected. or exceeding expectations. Second grade, we do not see that same thing. This is an area of concern. And then we come to reading. Those first 3 slides were all math. This is our kindergarten growth in reading. 45% are at or above expectations, which means 48% are not. Once they get to first grade, we're at 51%. Second grade pulled it up for reading, but we're struggling with math. So 60% at second grade. Third grade, 46%. Fourth grade. And fifth grade. So our next steps have been, or our current steps have been providing training and support around that new report, Effectiveness of Instruction and the Pathways of Progress. We've done that training with administrators. We're continuing to do it with literacy specialists and the math leadership team, so that each building has a cohort of people that really understand those reports and can work them into their PLC model so that they can design the instruction that's going to be effective for their students based on their needs. And questions on Acadians before we go to MAP?
Go back to one of the very first, the Acadians benchmark, the blue line. It's near the beginning.
Look away, I'll make you seasick.
Right there.
Yes.
What is the benchmark? Is that grade reading level, or is that a percentile benchmark across the nation?
Across the nation, it's
Which
where
is-
students would be expected to perform.
What percentile is that?
So that's where 50% of students should reside.
So it's not grade level, but the benchmark is what 50% of the.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I was just already thinking about MAP. I apologize.
It's okay.
The average score for a kindergarten reader in the United States is represented by that benchmark, is the average.
And what percentile is that? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay. So that's not grade, it could be below grade level then.
It could be, yeah, if
So if these benchmarks aren't even at where they're supposed to be,
mhm.
this could say that they're even worse off than what this looks like.
Yes, because the benchmark could change over time.
Right.
I think over the last 20 years, it probably has, especially for early education. We know we see students coming in a little bit further behind than we did when I started my career as an educator
Yeah.
and working in early education.
If you could find out for me what.
Yeah, I can do a little
for the
digging on that.
board, what percentile that is, because if it's below 50%, they're doing worse than even 50%.
Yes, yep.
Okay,
So yeah, what this is really showing you is how they're doing based against, in comparison to their peers across the country.
right, okay, thank you.
And just for the record, I wanted to mention, this is year 4, right? Of
4.
Acadians, yeah. Next year is the last year that they'll be using the paper system. And the price increase is pretty significant. So that's one of the things that we'll need to be thinking about as we budget for Acadians moving forward. Right now, we pay for a kindergarten student, we pay $2 a student for the reading and $1.50 for the math for the year. Once they go to this computer system, it's going to be more like $6.50.
I think maybe we might consider that Acadians, if it's been 4 years, we should be beyond that blue mark by now. It's so maybe if that is a really high price, maybe this isn't working. After 4 years, I would think that we would be better off past those benchmarks, past that blue line and not, there's only one in second grade that's a little bit further. And nothing on this side, one in first grade in 1920. But right now, as they sit, they're not even passing this. So we might consider using something else that may be working above and beyond across the country. I mean, that's maybe something, because as far as I know, Wonders, when we decided to get it, it was nearly in its first stages. In fact, part of it wasn't even completed yet. So,
And it, you know, there's a lot of discussion around, that would need to be had around that as it pertains to how we are identifying and progress monitoring students, because we back test in Acadians as well. We use it for progress monitoring in the RTI process and for IEPs,
right.
and it is our universal screener. Not saying it has to be, but something
Right.
does. So, you know, there's just a lot of discussion that would go into that, but that might be the opportunity to make that discussion, you know, carry forth with what we have for next year. We already have the materials printed, we're good to go. And just knowing that it's going to sunset or we're going to be spending more money.
Right, yeah, okay. I don't have any other, I have more questions, but go ahead and go on, unless Clay, you got. Oh, yep, go ahead, Troy.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, so basically Acadians is only an evaluation of the student's learning. So it's not necessarily in and of itself, the progress in and of itself is not the fault of Acadians. It's more of, I don't mean to accuse
The
teachers, but
curriculum,
teaching, the
Wonders.
curriculum, whatever it is. So Acadians is just identifying the issue of student learning. So I
Right.
just said that not necessarily that we have to use Acadians or not use Acadians, but I don't want to blame Acadians for the lack of student achievement, is what I'm
Right,
saying.
absolutely. It's the instruction that makes the difference. This is just the measuring stick.
when does Wonders come back up? Do we have to,
Think it's 3 years, but it might be 2. I can look that up and
okay,
just email it to you.
Okay.
It seems like it's been 5 years, but really, I'm not
it's
sure it
definitely
has.
been 4, because we got it at the same time that we did the Acadians, so that's been at least 4 years.
I've got to go, well, and I have to look at my contract too. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I can't pull this out
No,
of
that's okay,
my memory bank right now.
that's fine. Okay. Is that it? Yep, go ahead.
Okay, let me switch presentations. I'll bring up MAP. Okay, here's our mid-year MAP report. Just a reminder, MAP is an adaptive test. Oh, well, why didn't it switch my share? Let's try that again. How's that look? Okay, there we go. There's a little time delay here. Sorry about that. All right. So it's an adaptive test. It will continue to ask increasingly complex questions until the student starts making errors. And again, it scales down, it scales up, it fine tunes until it gets to a RIT score that represents where the student is in their learning and what they're ready to take on next. So again, RIT scores are an equal interval scale. They measure growth. They're not specifically tied to a grade level, and it correlates to the skills students are likely ready to tackle. So here's our MAP growth district summary for math. So this is the national mean RIT in the right column on the top table, and that's our RIT in the middle column. So for example, our third graders in math scored 191.9. The national mean is 196.23.
Really quickly explain the mean, the national, the number.
So if you have a, this is in percentiles. So you would expect, once you find the middle score, 50% of students are above that, 50% of students are below that. So this is easily looked at in percentiles if you choose to. There's so many levels of reporting within MAP.
So the third grader national mean 196, what does that number mean?
That's how many RIT points they scored. There is really no conversion on RIT score except to Lexile. They do convert to a Lexile level and then a quantile for math. But it's just the unit of measurement that they use. You remember that, well, you can see on that lower right table down there, there is a decent standard deviation, but you can see what's expected growth at each grade level down there. Third graders from fall to winter are expected to gain 7.75 points.
I guess I still don't understand what the 196 is. So 196 is the average.
The national average score of third graders in RIT points.
Okay, all right.
So MAP also makes projections on how students, what they project students will do. So when they took their fall assessments, it comes up with a projection for all of our third graders on what they expect the growth to be. And you can see K or 3 through 8th, what our projected growth was at each grade level and what our observed growth was. So in all grade levels except third, we met our growth goals or the projections. Of course, it would have been nice to gain more ground, but this is good news too.
Troy has his hand up. Go ahead, Troy.
Thank you.
If I can remember my statistics class, and that means 20 years ago, my assumption is that mean is the middle of all the grades or the average of all the grades. So Kate, that means that 196 is the middle. And so in our case, 191 would be below the mean or below the average of all the students in the nation.
Millions of students that MAP tests.
May I just point out something on this slide that is up in front of you? Actually, we exceeded in 4th through 8th grade the projected growth. So that is positive news. Especially 4th grade really exceeded by quite a bit.
Yes. Celebration for sure.
Definitely.
This is just another way to look at it. This is one of the reports that teachers can do for their classroom or administrators can do for a teacher or group of teachers or their building at large. And then, whoop, I didn't go too far. Okay. Then this is breaking it down. Again, this is where Vicki comes in super, super handy because we dump it all into Skyward and she pulls it back out and we can look at our students in different ways. So you can see grades 3 on the left all the way to grade 5 on the right. Between 54 and I would say about 52% of our students would be at above projected growth. Roughly 7% of our students are at expected growth. And then maybe 45 is the average for below projected growth. This is broken out by ethnicity.
Quick question.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, one more.
So this is this year's 3rd, 4th, 5th. This is following class, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So looking at this, our fourth graders, 60% of them are making the growth that was expected of them or above expectations. And it's all, yeah, this year's fourth grade cohort. This one's a little different, just to point out, general education population is on the bottom left, and our special education population is on the right. This is title schools versus non-title schools. These are our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in math, and students above, at, or below projected growth again. Really happy with our 8th grade. 62% are growing at or above expectations. This is broken down by ethnicity. General ed versus special education. And title versus non-title. We are still working off of the free and reduced lunch counts from back in 2019 for how we determine if a student falls into the low income category. It's just an ongoing issue, especially now that so many of our schools offer free and reduced for everyone. We just don't get those applications like we used to. So it's really getting much more difficult to track exactly who is in that population.
Yeah.
Here's our reading data. And again, the average, so 3rd grade average RIT score is 193.9. We came in at 190.4. So looking just quickly to the observed growth on the right, you can see in 3 of our grade levels, we were under expectations for growth by a point, it looks like, on most of them. And on the 4th, 7th, and 8th grade, we were at or above expectations. And I know 6.0 is less than 6.1, but MAP gives it to us, so I took it. And a different way to look at it. Here are our 3rd through 5th grade students and their performance on English language arts. And it is definitely worth noting that 53% of our students basically are not making expected or projected growth in ELA. This is broken down by ethnicity. IEP versus non-IEP. Clearly made very little difference in this group. Title versus non. Again, pleasantly, they're pretty close together. This is 6th, 7th, and 8th. And 6, 7, 8 by ethnicity. IEP versus no IEP. Non-title versus title. Here's science. You can see our mean RITs. You can see the national mean RITs. Science, we're pretty close to the national average. You can see, interestingly, third, fourth, and fifth made less progress than sixth, seventh, and eighth, but sixth, seventh, and eighth is where they start their daily science instruction too, so it would make sense. Another way of looking at it. And any questions on our map data? I know I went through that pretty quickly, but again, you do have copies of it. And just like Gabe, if any of you want to ask specific questions that are, too detailed for this venue, just get a hold of me.
We sure will. Lori, go ahead.
Yeah, Valerie, will you go back to the reading writ slide where we've got our scores compared to the national?
This is science, right?
The next one. All right, so this shows at winter time, right? Comparing what I find interesting is, and we saw this in the fall too, that at third grade, we were a little under the national mean, but we start to close that gap a little bit more and more every year, so that when we get to eighth grade, that gap no longer exists. We're right at the average score. So I just thought that was worth noting, because I think there's lots of ways that we can look at progress. And I think this is a good example of, the efforts are paying off over time. We just need to remember when, only around 42-43% of our kindergartners are starting where we would expect them to be.
Right.
It takes years, right, of more than years with growth to continue to close that gap.
That is an excellent point. Yes.
I'm not seeing any other hands. Go ahead, Clay.
Thank you. To Dr. Simon's point, I can see we don't have a very big audience out there, but what are we doing, and what can we do to help, our children, the kindergartners coming in every year, to be at a higher level? I know a lot of that's out of our control, but
Expanded early education opportunities.
which more money from
Yeah.
state is what's needed there.
Yeah.
That's.
We're in a crisis just for childcare, much less preschool.
I know, and these are all, more I think about it, not. I guess I'm struggling to think of how ways we can, work to get that done, and have, partnerships with, pre-K education people, some sort of investment to help with that. So
I would love a solid ongoing advertising campaign, if those work, which I think some have, to parents of young children about what they can do at home, simple things that they could do at home to just increase their child's readiness when they do cross that doorstep to our school. It's simple as reading, sign up for Dolly Parton's books, those just things that really do make a big difference in leveling the playing field.
yeah, it's an issue, obviously, the data showing it. And I guess, one other thing, with the RIT scores on it too, I think I get your point, Kate, where it's hard to judge where that's at. It's just a national RIT. Perhaps our data analyst can try to break that down more on seeing, I don't know if it's the right way to show it, on kind of a bell curve where we're, not just where we're at, the mean of us, but where are our top performing students at, where are our bottom performing students at, and what do those trends look like?
I can sure talk to Vicky about that. Because probably I'll be doing this again for y'all in the spring.
Yep.
I would just make a comment that I do know that in the past, Amy and I have both wanted at least the Acadians broken down by school, because there are some schools that are doing better. And I think that that was our point of asking for that information, to see what schools are doing better instead of the average of everybody, and have you guys, look at those schools that are doing better and say, okay, what is it you're doing that the other schools aren't doing, so that we help those other schools?
Well, I can assure you the TLI department that, is
Yeah.
mine. We do look at the schools.
Right.
We'd look for trends in grade levels too, because that points to gaps in the curriculum. And
Well, and I don't remember exactly Amy's, but we agreed that we both wanted to see them for different reasons, for the whole board to see them broken down by schools. So
I think that we've just, if that's what Dr. Simon wants me to provide, I certainly can.
right.
Yeah, I think we would be fine to provide that information for the board, just because we don't want to get into a situation where there's public shaming of schools, individual schools going on. We broke down the data for the public facing presentation by title versus non-title school to
Right.
at least give you a little bit different breakdown of the data. But we certainly could, for the board's purposes, show you the
Mhm.
school level data.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I don't see any other hands up. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And we will see you again in the spring. All right. I guess that's the end. We're on to an adjournment because we are not going into executive session. So I need a first and second.
Motion.
So
I think that was Gabe.
Madam President, before I take roll call, there was an issue. The link on the calendar for tonight was correct, but for somehow online, it wasn't working. So I did get it justified, and we will have the meeting posted tomorrow morning, the video.
Okay, great, thank you.
Kate,
Yes.
Gabe,
Yes.
Clay,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Troy.
yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
It's a little bit of a rough start, but in the end, we got there.